Look at us. We look so good here. Welcome to the show. I feel like the era we're in right now, I mean, lawyers, you guys have been lawyers now, COOs. Congratulations on that promotion there. And I'm assuming it still involves a lot of legal work, so I'm not sure if you're free from that whatsoever. But it feels like we're in this era right now where there's this expectation of a lot of changes happening and a lot of people acting as if a lot of changes have happened. And yet when you sit down and talk to lawyers in your wonderful way bring us back down to reality. And so what I'm hoping today to do is sort of to get into the conversation about the shift that we're in right now, maybe some of the expectations people have, whether they are fair or not, and how we can kind of calibrate ourselves looking forward into 2026. I know you guys both come from a lot of deep experience in crypto across a variety of different types of companies and products. And so I'm sure the conversation is going to be useful and interesting here today. So we kicked off this live stream yesterday with Toli, who kind of defined the era that we're in right now as the shift from the hoodies to the suits. And I think that has, for many who've been in crypto for a long time, has kind of left them feeling like, oh, like what is this era that we're stepping into here? Is everything going to be stocks on chain and Robinhood, or is there a big opportunity for the rest of us? And for those of us that are sort of building products and launching tokens and networks, the question seems to be like, how do we navigate this shift where there's a lot of optimism around maybe the clarity that we've have sought for over a decade now, but also the reality on the ground maybe hasn't changed so much. So I'm curious, maybe just to start off, how would you define sort of this time we are in from a legal perspective in crypto?
Wow, you like really set it up. That's some high expectations. I'll jump in to start. I do. So here's the shift, which is the cost of doing business for the last 4 or 6 years was, when am I going to have to start engaging with regulators in a adversarial kind of stance, or when am I going to have to go to court or something like that? And that did definitely prevent the suits from even thinking about the space. I don't know if I understand. Never gonna go against what Toli has to say, but I don't think it's a shift away from hoodies and to the suits. I think it's a bringing the suits in, and I think this is a moment in time where we're seeing a lot of euphoria from institutions who wanted to get in, who weren't willing to do that cost of doing business and getting subpoenas and stuff like that. So I think that's where some of the euphoria comes from. But I think for what we're building on Solana, we're building markets for everything, whether it be traditional assets, new assets like tokens, and assets that we haven't even think of coming on chain before, tokenized representations of shoes, whatever it may be. And so
there were already socks. Let's not forget.
Yes, that's true. But so seeing this arc of bringing them in, I think is that. I don't think we have a ton of regulatory clarity, maybe a little bit in Europe, and we do for stable coins in the US. But I think that because the cost of doing business has changed, people are really willing to build.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think to what Rebecca said about not really having total clarity right now, we do at least, to steal from Star Wars, have a new hope of what can be for the future. So we are able to go in and proactively engage with regulators in a way that we haven't before. So I spent my time before being at Solana Policy Institute was, just as Rebecca was saying, on the defense, working on regulatory investigations and litigation and centralized and decentralized exchanges. And the difference that has the last 9 months have brought has been a lot of hope, a lot of new engagement that we were never able to achieve before. But also I do think this is hard. It's hard for lawmakers to understand this. It's hard for regulators to wrap their heads around how the rules that they've always known will work in the next sort of wave of financial innovation. And so we have a lot of hope, but we do also have a lot of education to do still. And I'm hopeful that we will get there. It just is, it's not something that happens overnight.
I mean, how is the way that you guys are operating today kind of how is it tactically different than, maybe 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, I don't think 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think there were many projects that were going in to say, knock on the door of the SEC to say, hey, this is what I'm building. This is what I'm planning to do. Can you help me out? How do I register?
Right.
That gets you a Wells notice. That might get you sued. So right now, there's sort of the fear has been lifted. Yeah. It's a much more welcoming place where you can go in. You can bring engineers, you can bring founders, you can bring developers, and they want to talk about the technology. They want to truly understand it, the ins and outs, in a way that is not, we're giving you a subpoena, give us every single document about how you created this product, and we'll type up a lawsuit and see you in 6 months.
Yeah, and we were the first private company to go in to see the SEC Crypto Task Force last February, so almost a full year ago. And right before we went in, we were like, should we be doing this?
This seems risky.
Yeah, but we took a leap of faith, and it was really worthwhile because we had a lot of continued engagements. We've seen great sort of staff guidance come out of the SEC on that kind of thing. I think in terms of how people can operate, look, I think there are some people who are YOLOing it a little too hard, but even during the time period when we were expecting subpoenas, lawsuits, things like that, my advice was always like, you got to act in good faith. Like, if you get a subpoena, what would you be able to say, here's all the ways I was a good actor? And we should still be doing that today. If we actually are trying to build a marketplace for everything, where we want to include everyone, hoodies, suits, my mom, your grandma, whatever it may be, then we should be building a place where there is certainty and like an expectation of sort of smoothness of markets and good actors.
And that's the way to bring the suits with us too, is to make sure they see that you are acting in good faith and you are, well counseled, and you're not, they don't necessarily want to work with the folks who are YOLOing it. They want to make sure folks have been thoughtful about how they're approaching it and understand sort of the environment that we're in and where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested because I think the YOLO nature of much of this is in part why we are where we are today. I think it's sort of some early risks people took. At least this is my perspective. It feels like so much of what crypto has been regulatory arbitrage that kind of created a sense of inevitability that was maybe like the wind that really led to the shift in sort of stance from regulatory bodies and governments. Is that a fair take to have?
Are you using YOLO positively or negatively? Because I think YOLO back Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana days was very positive, right? Like, we don't know what this is. Let's build something new. Let's YOLO it. I think now people, especially lawyers, use YOLO to say, please don't do that. Crime season, that kind of thing.
Right. You're right. The whole crime season narrative maybe changed the dynamics around YOLO. I would use it as positive, but I'm not sure you can actually disentangle all of that so much. I mean, maybe at the extremes it's pretty clear, but I think that, listen, you could go talk to 5 different lawyers and get 5 different takes on where the black and white was maybe always clear, but where the gray got iffy was a little bit squishier on the edges. And I feel like so many of the teams that actually just kind of pushed into that are responsible in many ways for this exceptions we have today.
I think we're still pushing into the gray. Like, we're still there, and you got to do it.
Right. To me, it seems kind of like what is this shift here? Because is it just like one guy is out and another guy is in, and all of a sudden the entire rank and file of the people who are in charge of sort of setting up these regulations changes? Because that seems kind of crazy to me, and yet seems like the way it is.
So tone from the top is certainly an important aspect of what we're dealing with, but I do think like the rank and file folks who have been there for a long time, this is very new to them, and they have seen markets operate in specific ways, and they are concerned about protecting consumers. They're concerned about systemic risk to the financial system, and rightfully so. And I think they are, excuse me, little bug running around. They are sort of rightfully cautious to want to understand and really get a grasp of the technology, and in sort of consistent with the tone at the top that we're hearing.
I'm interested in how you guys work with. I think so many of the category leaders today took a lot of those legal risks, 2-3 years ago, and I think there's people that are looking 2 to 3 years out see a lot of opportunity, hoping regulations change and wanting to maybe start operating today or making moves towards those categories to kind of get a head start. I'm interested in how you guys, I guess, work with founders to kind of balance the lack of regulatory clarity or hope for regulatory clarity with the desire and need to, move fast and, I guess, break things.
Maybe not the best example. Maybe break things.
Not break things, but
move fast and make things.
And make things.
Hey,
there we
go.
There we go.
Oh, that's a Policy Institute
well,
guy.
I owe that to our marketing department.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll be very happy. There's a lot of signs that say that around. No, I do think like bringing builders around and developers, like I was mentioning before, is really crucial to doing exactly what you're talking about, because they are the ones that can teach really what this technology does, what it's capable of doing, and help to shape sort of the whether it's whatever kind of relief we're going to see from regulators or whatever rules they're going to be creating. Like, that is something that is we're hoping is very near term, and something that we need to be working on education, for example, in order to make sure that they're getting everything that they need in order to craft rules that do the right thing and allow people to build 6 months, 1 year, 6 years into the future.
I think what you're referring to is like stocks on chain and things like that, and that is pushing forward without any clarity right now. We've heard rumblings, right, and we've seen lots of different iterations of it, whether it's and like not all the on-chain stocks are created equal, and not all the ways they're coming on chain are the same. There you have permissioned pools and not, and things like that. And that is a moving past and breaking things kind of thing. But it goes to your YOLOing, which is like, and it's how markets have always sort of evolved, which is people are pushing the frontier, people are making new things, and the rules and the regulations grow up around it to create these guardrails. Would I necessarily say you should tokenize stock and YOLO it today? I might have some of those conservative feelings to say you can't do it, but people are doing it. And I think the environment allows you to take some of those risks and then start putting in your own guardrails around it. But complicated, but lots of people are pushing the boundaries now.
Well, I think one of my favorite quotes from one of our lawyers was, who will remain unnamed for this example, was everybody's speeding down the highway. You just want to be the one that's ripping down faster than everybody else, smoking weed and playing reggae music. And that was kind of like, I'm like, oh, that's a very helpful mental model. Okay. And I think that there's a big distinction between those that are starting with this, like, don't do fraud, do your best to do disclosures. Like that, there's clearly ways to position yourself that showcase a desire to play by the book that I think position you well for the shift. And I think there's clearly people who are, the crime season was a whole new level this time around. I love that look. She's like, no, we've always had crime season.
There's agreement. There's agreement here.
I was going to say at SBI, that's we are taking in projects and we're making submissions to be able to do exactly those things. And yes, it takes time. Some people are more patient than others, to put it kindly. And I think we are all trending toward and working towards seeing like at least some sort of workable framework. Hopefully, as Chair Atkins has been hinting at, hopefully in the very near term. And it's because we are doing that engagement that we are going to, fingers crossed, see this happen relatively near term.
Yeah, but the one thing I think we have to call out that is always at the forefront is DeFi and what is happening there. This is where the tokenized stocks question comes into. Can you trade them on DEXs? What are we going to do about that? But DeFi holds everything up on legislation. It frequently holds everything up on the regulatory side and all the agencies. You saw Citadel come out last week.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Something, who knows?
Yeah,
all the
crypto
time.
Time
is blurring together. Really coming out hard against decentralized permissionless software. And so I think we kind of have to put DeFi in the same category as stablecoins, which is like we don't have full product market fit in DeFi because people have been very resistant to it. But it is probably one of the greatest innovations around crypto, and we should do, from a legal perspective, everything humanly possible to protect all the things around DeFi for sure.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where it is hard. It is hard for folks to understand.
Yeah.
It is hard for lawmakers and regulators who have 1,000 other issues that they're juggling with to really take a deep dive like we have and understand how the technology works, what it really means, what risks it solves for, what risks it may interpose that other things don't have. It's an entirely sort of new concept to them, and it is hard, and we understand that, and we are working tirelessly to educate and make sure folks in the right places understand exactly what it is, what it does, and what makes sense in terms of either legislation or rules.
Yeah.
How malleable is some of the, I guess, regulations that we hope are coming in the next few years? Like, are kind of the general structures around those set in stone, and the stuff that we're actively kind of lobbying for, working on today, further out into the future, or is this stuff coming in the next few years still kind of open for restructuring and debate?
Ooh, you go first because I want to know what you're going to say.
Oh, I was going to say, our goal is as durable of wins as we can possibly make. Things that, obviously legislation is the most durable, but also the most difficult to pass. And as we were talking about, especially with DeFi, very hard for folks to understand. And we want to make sure that we get things right because we're going to have to live, if there's legislation, with it for a very long time. And then sort of, underneath that, I think the rulemaking process that the SEC, the CFTC, other agencies go through, like those are also relatively durable wins that we can make, and also things that don't require congressional action and are more difficult to sort of undo in the future. And then there's a whole host of other things that are quicker agency actions that sort of with the stroke of a pen you can always undo. But our goal is certainly, especially now when we have the opportunity, as durable of wins as we can possibly get.
Yeah, but your question is also like, is it happening tomorrow? So it's gonna, do we still have wiggle room to try to advocate for certain things? And the answer is yes. I don't think we're close. I mean, maybe in some ways we're close, but not fully. I think the other piece of it is like, you shouldn't want regulations that codify the industry the way it is today. You
Right.
want like guardrails, but not like, this is how a token launch has to work. This is how DeFi has to work. Because like, somebody asked me today, like, well, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? And I was like, I don't know. And that's why I'm in crypto, because I couldn't have predicted anything in the last 10 years. And so we want to have like the guardrails, but not anything that says like, this is exactly how things have to go down.
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing about, Josh and I are live on the internet 5 days a week talking to founders, executives, lawyers. There is very few things that I could put like 100 of them in the room together that I'd have even 50% of them agreeing on. And I think it kind of speaks to the emergent nature of this technology that we're still in. And so I think there is a very real fear that what gets written into law actually meaningfully limits or restricts the type of innovation. Are there certain areas there that we should be more concerned about in closing off what we might be able to go do?
Token launches in DeFi.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so easy. I mean, we know how to regulate centralized, like
Right.
an exchange. That's pretty easy.
We've
like,
seen intermediaries for a very long time,
Yeah.
and we know what they are and we know what they do. But you're exactly right. I mean, I was going to say DeFi, but tokenization.
And what are the sort of, like, are you seeing stuff come up in these conversations, or as you're sort of reviewing some of the legislations that's coming through that are like more notably concerning?
I mean, I would love to see some language. It's been a while since we've seen statutory language.
Yeah.
I think that will be really helpful. We can get a much better answer to your question once we see, where sort of the language lands. Because right now we've seen drafts, and we've all gone sort of back and forth and are trying to really understand and get a concept of like where this final language might be. And I think we're all like very patiently waiting.
Still reading the tea leaves type of thing.
I mean, we've been given some indications of where things might land. But look, I think the thing that's really hard is that there was obviously huge resistance to this technology because the cost of doing business was, oh, everything's a crime. People on the Hill were not taking meetings, not doing as much education. Some people were, and some people weren't. But now that this is a priority from the top and getting some regulatory clarity is important, you have people engaging in this really fast way. And like to Patrick's point, like, are you going to learn all the ins and outs of DeFi in 6 weeks? Probably not. It's
Right.
tough. But I think we should clip Patrick's "I'd love to see" language. And
Yeah, who do we
definitely-
need to send that to?
I mean, we should just clip it and put it on Twitter so that everybody
Perfect.
can start
We'll get the
retweeting.
Solana retweet, and yeah.
Hopefully everyone agrees with that.
Do lawyers ever agree on everything? I feel like this is not been my
Certainly not.
experience. Rebecca, I'm curious how, as somebody who you were GC, I think, is it GC? Why is my brain
Sure,
breaking right now?
GC is
GC at your. I'm wondering how day to day that job has changed over the last year versus the previous years.
Yeah. Less monitoring of Twitter.
Okay.
In terms of like what your founders are saying and stuff like that. I mean,
Right.
Delete the tweets, sort of thing. Or?
yeah, in fairness, Lucas and Zano like are pretty great on
Yeah.
Twitter in general, good engagement, funny, smart. But I think that there was this unnatural reining in of things because you were like, I know I'm going to see that in an SEC complaint. And it was like a normal disclosure, right? Like people actually wanted to be transparent. People actually wanted to say things. And that normally is a positive thing. You should want people to be talking about how protocol works, whatever. And it was, I think, very unnatural to try to tell people like, no, say less, don't say anything. And we shouldn't want that. That's not a good environment. So I'd say that's probably that. But like, look, I really love working with builders. It's what truly gets me excited every single day. And so when you're just focusing on the tech, and especially in a world where you're building DeFi and there's a lot of permissionlessness, it's a little different than building something like a centralized exchange.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I actually just came into more of a policy role very recently. I mentioned before I was primarily on the litigation investigation side because I mean that was sort of how policy was made for quite a while. It was you get a subpoena and you try and argue that you're not violating, XYZ law, rule, whatever.
Or guess which laws they wanted that they thought you were violating.
Yeah, you oftentimes did not get any indication. It was just all of them, and so you got to just write a Wells response with every securities law. But I think for me, the proactive engagement piece, we just haven't had before. And that's what excited me about coming over to SPI. We'd done some of that work before and comment letters and attempting to engage, but it's a whole new world now, and it's a really fun to actually be able to feel like you're doing something positive and building something rather than just being on the defensive the entire time.
So are these smoke-filled back rooms? I mean, this is what I'm imagining. I have sort of like the 90s television era sort of view of how government works, where it can be the leadership at the top has a lot of impact, and the way that decisions are made. I think as you sort of get more experience in the space and more, you realize how much the sort of soft side of relationships and education seems to be a really big thing that you guys are focused on. So I'm curious what the dynamics are like on the policy side as you're actually trying to go affect change here.
Do you want to go because you're new, or do you want me to go because I'm old?
Do you want to do Congress? Yeah, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I've been doing this a really long time because I was a lawyer. I was like one of the only lawyers in DeFi really early. I've been doing it. I don't know, when Patrick used to be at Uniswap back in the day, and I represented Uniswap when they were 4 people. So
I think you're one of my first lawyer follows on X, actually. So yeah, go way back. And that's
thanks.
2017, 2018 type thing. So
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. My kids think that it's really cool that I have a bunch of Twitter followers, even though they're not allowed to have social media. So I appreciate it. But in all seriousness, the way policy works in crypto is not the way it works for almost any other industry. Most other industries have a few trades and they go in and they speak on behalf of everybody and everybody's aligned with what they want because their business models all look the same. In crypto, every business model is different. And like, just as we care about decentralization and democratization, I think there's a lot of that in policy, a lot of viewpoints. Everybody knows, like, you can't have a policy meeting unless DeFi is represented. And there are a few people who get called in to do the DeFi stuff. And so I think there is a lot more industry engagement. People in the crypto policy world are more willing to take a risk and blow things up and talk about things publicly. And that has been a huge shift for our policymakers. So maybe 3-4 years ago, it was a little more cliquey and insiderish, but as of 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, I'm putting out every policy position I take publicly, so you know exactly what I'm saying going into every room. At prior places, I would either write papers and post them on the internet or whatever, and that is frequently very different than what happens with like the bank lobby and stuff like that, or the CME where, or derivatives where they're going in and there are 2 guys who are calling up the CFTC and saying like, this is what we want. But I don't know.
How many other people get a task force devoted to their industry where everyone can submit sort of public open comments and you can read everyone's opinions about where we think things are heading and where we think rules should be going? Like, that is sort of the opposite of the back room, smoke filled, whatever you want to call it. Like, they want to make it as easy as possible doing road shows around the country to be able to meet with different developers. Like, it is, that is how good regulation will get made at the SEC, and we are like very proud to be part of that. And I can't wait to sort of see as the submissions roll in. We're always checking, and some are better than others.
Well, that's actually, I'm curious about that. Where's the disagreement within our space right now? It feels like there are so many different incentives maybe at play here, and I imagine that might lead to some friction or conflict.
I have a spicy take, so you can go first.
Oh, no, I would like to hear that.
You can't lead off with that.
You can't save it.
I think the disagreement is around how to put good policy in place around DeFi and where people.
Well, yeah, that's like, the hardest part.
It
But
is,
what does
but-
that mean though? Like, where does that
Sure,
actually?
there are people who are talking about compliance down at the protocol level and
Right.
that kind of stuff, which is like we're not doing that. Protocols, just like the base layer, should be neutral. If they're truly true DeFi or whatever. I think there's a lot of debate around what is true DeFi and stuff like that. So that's the biggest hot button issue. But achieving policy goals without ruining what is special about DeFi is probably the biggest hot button issue, not just from a congressional standpoint, but like even among lawyers, I think there's a lot of debate.
And I will say too, at times it may get painted in the press or something as there's infighting and crypto, and I feel like as a general matter, we agree on a lot, and like we just want to be treated fairly, and we want to have we want to be able to understand what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and we all have very very common goals of being able to build in a productive way, including in the United States, and I think we have a lot more in common than we do that sort of is different among
Look
all
at
of us.
Patrick
but-
bringing everybody together.
Well, I don't like the false narrative that we're like infighting
We're not
potentially,
infighting,
but it's
we're not infighting, but I think that
what you're saying is absolutely right. I don't mean to detract from that.
Well,
but
I think it is one of the
so much
benefits
unites
of
us.
this, though, right? Is that there is sort of part of this open discussion is multiple viewpoints and the willingness to engage that. And the way that I set the question up, this idea of there being back rooms, while that may look good on TV, clearly a suboptimal way to actually go and get things done if you're actually trying to represent an emergent industry where things are not quite defined. So I would see that as a very positive take, even if there was serious disagreement around what we need to do to move things forward.
there's no disagreement around the centralized stuff.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I mean, how different
It
is this path to regulation and policy in crypto compared to like AI, for example?
Oh, AI is dominated by 3 or 4 players who are doing a bunch of backroom stuff and making all these calls. Like I had this revelation while I was here, which is I think if you're a builder who wants to like be a new entrepreneur, the barrier to entry in AI is actually really high.
Mhm.
You're not going to take on any of these big players, and they are eating up people or snagging people from the smaller companies to then build it in house. If you want to really innovate, have low barrier, crypto's the way to go. And I know everyone's super excited about this AI narrative, and it's great. There's a lot being built, but I actually think this is still the most exciting place to build.
I mean, I'm with you there.
I don't have anything to add to that.
I just think AI is a very backroom
Yeah.
kind of dealing on
I mean,
the
we're
policy
talking about
side.
gazillions of dollars here, like just absolute gazillions.
I mean, both of you are making your lives very hard by being lawyers in crypto. So I'm curious what kind of underskirts your desire to be a lawyer in this space. Is it ideological? Is it just the fun, open design space of law? Like what brought you to this space and what keeps you here?
I mean, I was talking about sort of, I can't remember who I was meeting, but I was talking about sort of my career path after law firm life and the places I've been. And they're like, wow, you really are a glutton for punishment, aren't you? And it's because I've always been interested in sort of the legal meets tech and sort of innovative gray areas, to be honest. My training was as a white collar criminal regulatory investigations lawyer. You don't really get black and white cases
Right.
very often when you're doing that. So my own intellectual curiosity sort of brings me into the places where you really have to figure out the puzzle. And I still think this is one of the coolest places to be a lawyer, because you're constantly addressing new issues, trying to understand new technology, and really digging in deep with experts and trying to formulate the best arguments you can.
Because I think all of us, whether we're enthusiasts or we're building the space, are really trying to keep tabs on the shift, on how regulations are going. What is your advice for folks like us that maybe it's just us and ChatGPT that want some data sources or some references to at least have a general understanding of how this stuff is moving forward?
Definitely do not get your legal advice from ChatGPT. I ran something the other day and they dated it 2024 instead of
The look on your face when I
2025.
said that was wonderful.
I'll say, just listen to Kim Kardashian. She has the advice. Don't listen to ChatGPT
Oh, that's what
for
she
your
said?
legal advice. Yes.
Oh, I mean, let's listen to Kim K.
Perfect.
Yeah.
In Fortnite, we get to listen to Kim K. Is that what she dropped something this week? The metaverse is now Fortnite, and this is the problem with being here. You're just so plugged into this.
Look,
You miss the big
I
stuff.
think, sure, consult a lawyer. It's hard. You're going to find great lawyers out there, maybe not even at big firms, but at boutiques who used to work at projects and just wanted to make sure they were giving good legal advice. So definitely crowdsource the best lawyers to go to. But don't do it. But also goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, be a good actor. Think about whether you'd want to participate in the system that you're building and who it advantages and who it disadvantages. And somebody was asking me about the highs and lows of crypto policy, and I had to go down to DC 2 weeks after FTX crashed to do some policy meetings.
Ooh.
And it was a pretty bleak time. And I read the Bitcoin white paper on the plane down. And if you're wondering about what the ideals that we're building towards are, go read the Bitcoin.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I think part of your question too, if I heard it correctly, was like, where can we get information? Where can we keep up with what's happening in policy? And there are a ton of great like Twitter accounts and Solana Institute. We post a ton of updated content as we're getting stuff. Rebecca is also, how many people do you follow Rebecca now? But she posts some very, very great content as well. So it's a great place to learn, hear
my Twitter
what other
following.
people.
I love it.
Well, and the Solana Institute. We also have some very, very good content.
That is actually what I was going to say, which is like, so that there is the Solana Policy Institute. They do a lot of educating and a lot of engaging with policymakers, but it is a really good place for builders to go to say, like, what do I do next, right? It's obviously free. They will direct you to good lawyers. They won't give legal advice, but like, it's actually a great resource for builders to feel like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, and we've met several people both in the past and here who, our engagement director, Colin McLaren, is happy to take projects, builders, developers around Washington, D.C., let them meet some lawmakers, let them, talk to both sides of the aisle to make sure that they really understand, who is building in the United States, who are your constituents, who you need to be concerned about making sure you're getting this right for, and how can we sort of bring that innovation back on shore. And that's all things that they want to hear about in Washington, D.C., and we're very happy. I mean, that's why we're here, to be able to offer those kinds of opportunities to folks in the ecosystem who may not have it on their own with their own project.
Awesome. Patrick, Rebecca, appreciate you guys jumping on and talking shop with us. I do think it is being a founder in crypto requires you to be far more engaged on the legal side of things than maybe anywhere else. And so I do, and I think it still feels very opaque. And maybe on the flip side, it's very beneficial to have a slightly more nuanced understanding of what's happening here, as so many things are still yet to be defined. So appreciate the work you guys do, and look forward to seeing some of the stuff coming to fruition over the next little while.
Yeah. Thanks so much for
So
having us.
thank you.
This was super fun.
Thanks, guys.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Metaplex. This clip brought to you by Metaplex. Launch tokens and NFTs on Solana and the SVM.